So today we're going to take a look at 100 Thieves versus Foot on Lotus, and the reason we're going to do that is because 100 Thieves, whilst they didn't have the best tournament ever, you know, they were perhaps a little underwhelming to what we expected, they did do some things that I really liked, and this is probably the best example here on Lotus against Foot. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to play you a round of this game, and I'm not going to say anything, and I want you guys to try and, you know, guess before I tell you later in the video what am I talking about. So let's dive into the round and let's see if you can work it out.
100 Thieves got what it takes to crack this open and set off to a nice half.
That's going to be a big test, that player quality difference.
So there's the knife again, this KO knife that's landing towards A. And what that means is that they're not going for a heavy, aggressive A setup. They're just doing it to grab a bit of information. Now, sometimes, later into the half, Kiwi is going to be upping behind that knife. But most of the time, Stella's going to read that as just a free entrance into A.
It's a tepid approach from 100 Thieves, just making sure they don't give away too many advantages, obviously, against the Eco. Shorty in the hands of Kiwi up close.
Just exploring the whole of the map.
Yeah.
You can see how Stella's taken a bit of information over towards A. He was using his cam really well on their attack side in the game against EDG just to take space. And 100 Thieves are really happy to explore the map here. This to me looks like they're trying to draw attention, but
my word.
Also getting a pick out of nowhere.
Yeah, quite fortunate for Bang, really. Paranoia was ripped across, and it did push them back for but a moment, but look at all this space that's just being gained. Stella quite aware of this now as well. He's managed to lurk his way into that forward position.
His lurks are so good on this map. And that's part of why they're playing the Cypher. He just has that informational tool to work around and can use the rest of his team to give him excellent timings. And Stella's just been so good in the last few months. These two teams played an off-season game, and you know, that's the kind of time where Stella was really coming alive, and this tournament...
Okay, we're just going to pause the video now right here because 100 Thieves are going to win this round and Foot are actually just going to die to the spike. So not much is going to happen from this point. But now I want you guys to think, maybe leave a comment down below as well. What do you think I'm talking about? What did I like that 100 Thieves did? Well, if you guessed farming ult orbs, you would be correct, because this is something I have always long thought that teams are just not doing enough of, right? Particularly in scenarios like this, where we've thrown in a nade here, right? We've started shooting. They know that you're there, right? They know that someone is there, right? We're shooting this box and whatnot. And so if you think that this ult orb is, you know, pretty free to grab, we're against a save, and they know that we're, you know, they know that someone's here already and we've got support, then why not just grab an ult orb? Because you will see a ton of times where this exact thing's happen, where you've shown a lot of presence, you've got kind of, you know, a bit of control or whatnot. You know, you can probably get the orb pretty safely, but instead teams will just, you know, walk away from the orb and not take it, even though you've already given away the information that someone is kind of there. And this is true for your ranked games as well, I think, where it just doesn't happen enough, where you should just be farming ult orbs because having an ult is pretty good. And one thing that particularly has always annoyed me is that people do farm ult orbs sometimes, particularly when pro teams, or probably even yourself in your ranked games as well. If you pick Phoenix, you probably farm more ult orbs than you do if you're playing other agents, right? Because Phoenix has a pretty strong ult and it only costs 6 orbs, right? So that means that, you know, when you get that ult orb, hey, you know, you're probably not too far away from getting it. A couple kills, plant the spike, whatever, right? You're already getting pretty close, and you can Phoenix ult in a half, you know, 4, maybe even 5 times if you're really popping off. And pro teams will do this as well, where, hey, we're playing Phoenix, let's farm a bunch of ult orbs. Hey, we're not playing Phoenix? Nope, we're not going to get one the entire game. That just doesn't make any sense, because it's not like having 3 KO ults, or 3 Fade ults, or 3 Silver ults, or 3 Viper spits is like a bad thing in a half. It's not like that's going to be a detriment to your team. It's going to help you win rounds. And this is what's something that is just really always annoyed me, because people just don't farm enough ult orbs. And in this game against Foot, 100 Thieves would end up having, on just their attack side alone, farming 14 ult orbs in 12 rounds. Now, considering that certain rounds are just going to be, you know, very quick rounds where either the Foot are pushing out, you know, maybe on an eco or something, or, you know, 100 Thieves are just going for like a fast hit of a site and so don't want to, you know, waste the time getting it, whatnot. Considering those, you know, account for a couple rounds as well, you know, 14 ult orbs in 12 rounds is a lot. And what that meant was, as you can see, Cryo is getting 2 here. He's actually still 1 off his ult as 100 Thieves coming towards C here. What that meant was they got 3 KO ults, 3 Fade ults, and 3 Raze ults in just 1 half. And those are all 8 cost ults, right? And this is the point. It's like having that extra KO ult, like, is never a detriment to your team, right? Like, it's only a good thing to have that extra ult. And essentially, it didn't really cost 100 Thieves much other than, you know, maybe playing slightly slower. But, you know, it really didn't cost them much. And particularly on maps like Lotus here, right? Where this B and C orb are fairly free for the attackers, right? They don't go contested too much, or, you know, oftentimes it's not going to be super heavily contested. You know, you can make a lot of that, right? You can get a lot of ults from that. And that's exactly what happened. Is here you go, Cryo. He farms those 2 ult orbs. He has an ult. Okay, it was a Cryo Raze ult. What did you expect? You know, it didn't go great. But, you know, in a different world, you still got that ult, and you know, it's a really good thing. And we end up in a situation here where Bang just can't quite find the spam, and Mr. Fallen does manage to get the defuse. But still, the point stands, having ults is good. And here's an example from the game Fnatic versus Na'Vi, where Fnatic have lost the attacking pistol. You can see they don't really have much in this round, and they're just going to literally go around the map and get Alfear some ult orbs. But my problem here for Fnatic would be, yeah, they did this in this round, and they got rewarded for it in the next round, where they got enough to use the Killjoy lockdown, and that really helped them win the 3rd round of this map, and then kind of go from there and ultimately go and win this map, right? My problem for Fnatic is they never did this or anything. Like, they didn't farm ult orbs really the rest of the time, right? And I know that this is like the extreme, obviously, like literally going around the map as a big group and just farming ult orbs. Like, obviously this is like the extreme. But again, I would say to like most teams, why isn't this the common 2nd round when you lose the attacking pistol, right? If you've only got like classics and whatnot in this 2nd round against guns, why is this not your strategy on every map? Because if you plugged, like, you know, if you had like a Valorant supercomputer to tell you what the optimal way of playing is, it might say, yeah, do this, right? It really might say this might be the answer it would give for how everyone should play 2nd round attack sides. Just farm ult orbs on whatever you think the most important ult is, right? That does make sense. And yeah, Fnatic aren't going to win this round. You know, they had a really low % chance of winning this round, but to me, it's just about like, we need to be thinking more long-term than instant gratification, right? Because often people will farm an ult orb if they're, you know, one-off or whatnot. You know, if you're one-off an ult, yeah, people do go and farm that ult orb. But any other time, it's like, yeah, well, I'm not going to get the ult right now, so who cares, right? But again, we need to be thinking about more than just the next round. Think about the whole half, right? And how many ults can we get in that whole half? So when we're thinking about maps like Lotus, which have some pretty free ult orbs for the attackers, even just the threat of having an ult might force your opponents to play in different ways, right? If you've got a Killjoy lockdown, or a Breach ult, or a KO ult, or something like that, it might force your opponents to play retake, which means that you're more likely to get the spike down, which means you've probably got a better chance of winning the round overall. So even just the threat of using an ult can change the way your opponents play and give you an inherent advantage. So keep that in mind. The TMV tip of the day is farm ult orbs to get as many ults as you can, because ults tend to be pretty good.